57 options. And at some point, somebody gets on that speaker within about 3 seconds of you pulling up to it and says, what would you like? Now, some of us might have a regular or an order that we gravitate towards when we have to make a snap decision. But for others, we go through the entire decision-making process each and every time. The first is to investigate the situation. Looking at all 157 options is going to take a very long time in a drive-through setting, but you're entitled to, and you're welcome to. We start to narrow it down. We want to create an environment where we can lump each thing into different categories: chicken, beef, salads, maybe health food, unhealthy food. We want to go ahead and create individual options. I'm feeling the home-style chicken sandwich and I'm feeling the Caesar salad, right? And we want to explore those options. What's going to be the best thing today? What am I feeling? What is my gut telling me I want to eat today? And from there, we select the best alternatives. It's going to be the Caesar salad with a lemonade. Move on. We talk about the evaluation of those choices. Is it affordable? Is it way more than I would want to pay for a Caesar salad with the lemonade? Then we execute that choice once that decision is made. And believe it or not, with every choice we make every day, those are the steps that we go through. We go in the sock drawer and we go through really quick and we just grab the closest pair of socks, right? Because socks are essential for the most part. When it comes to more complicated decisions, this 7-step process could take days. And as our speakers know, preparing for their next speech involves a lot of individual decisions. We're going to go into the structured speaking portion of our meeting now. And our first speaker is Samir. And I'm going to introduce Samir's evaluator, Nancy Ferry, who is going to provide feedback to Samir after his speech. Nancy, I'm going to let you take it away from here.
Thank you, Ryan. Samir today is doing a speech, and I am not familiar with what path it's from, and I'm assuming the time is 5 to 7 minutes if it's a pathway speech. I'm looking forward to hearing what this mystery speech is. I do have the title. Mr. Toastmaster, would you like me to tell the title, or are you going to?
I have the title. No worries there.
Yeah. All right. So I'm looking forward to hearing what Samir has to say and listening to evaluate him.
Excellent. This morning, Samir will be giving a 5 to 7 minute speech. The title is From Debater to Toastmaster. Samir, from debater to Toastmaster.
Thank you, Ryan. Toastmasters has been a lifelong journey for me at this point. First in college at the advice of my father, and then again in Jamestown, where I joined a Spartan club with a handful of members, but a lot of heart. And now here at AM Lockport, one of the most dynamic clubs I've ever found myself in, and the only one I've managed to stick with for an extended period of time. My public speaking journey, I guess I would say it started as a child. For a short time, I had a slight stutter. I think the words were coming into my head a little too fast for me to be able to get them all out. Later, as I moved past that setback and was better able to engage in the risk-taking endeavor of public speaking, I actually had a teacher tell me on the playground I was too precise in my words. So, maybe from not being able to say enough to being a little too precise in how I was describing things. Later, as I learned composition and persuasive writing in middle and high school, I became more confident, at least in my authorial voice. But my most significant real experience of public speaking started with debate in high school, specifically policy debate, which is the kind where you do a lot of research and have totes full of arguments that you would tote around the country to different tournaments every weekend. And you would also talk real fast and try to win through the sheer brute force of argumentation on technicalities. Unlike the other type of high school debate, Lincoln Douglas, where your goal is to sound exceedingly eloquent, presidential even, like the format's namesake, and strive to convince the judges of your ability to not only hold the esteem of, but also deftly sway public opinion. It was a bit more like Toastmasters, this other format, which I actually did once at a tournament. Nevertheless, despite the lack of more subtle rhetoric, I found I did enjoy public speaking, and I even ended up giving the valedictory speech of my Catholic Jesuit high school, although the comments afterwards were that I talked too fast. Later on, as I studied engineering, my father joined Toastmasters, something I wasn't really aware of or sure of at the time, but I did attend a meeting in college at the student union at his behest, where I gave an off-the-cuff table topics speech about what celebrity I'd date. It didn't go well, and I found myself a bit uncomfortable at having to come up with something impromptu without a direct and specific outcome or policy to advocate or work towards. Once I'd graduated from college, I started my career as an IT consultant in DC. This public speaking element was missing from my usual activities, although I was still able to use my debating skills to gain alignment on the necessary courses of action for whatever business outcomes I was helping drive as a consultant. Eventually, after some years while there, I picked up DJing, although not the kind that Larry does, where I had to do a lot of public speaking. And later, I experienced some personal loss, after which I found myself returning to Western New York and joining Toastmasters again, this time with the experience of time itself to help me appreciate the more subtle and strategic speech skills I've been missing at other points in my career and life. When I got here, I found a caring community of communicators creating a calm, orderly environment which honed some of the more nuanced skills that I needed to communicate more effectively. I found myself growing as a Toastmaster, specifically the new, more recent web-oriented program they have for development pathways, of which I'm going through the leadership development pathway. I learned a lot of valuable skills regarding speaking to your audience, project management, as well as the elective projects with myriad different ways of approaching the topic of communication, one of which even involves setting up a podcast, as well as beginning the process of completing a project with the group, as well as spending some Thursday mornings on some activities to give back to the community, like the Lockport cleanup project I worked on with Eric, Kate, Ryan, Marty, among others. Many of these types of educational materials are available elsewhere, but the educational experience of actually speaking and presenting is always unique. It's also increasingly relevant for many of us to have familiarity with, especially in this era of Zoom meetings. And having a refresher of the essentials in an easily digestible format through the short lessons that are in Pathways has been nice. I do admit I skimmed through them pretty quickly, but it's good to be able to go at your own pace. As an engineer, I love having different options to choose from, and Toastmasters thus far has provided a plethora of resources through which I can develop my skills in myriad formats. Although our Lockport Club is home to many long-term members, we also have many who join for a season, people who go and come back, professionals from a wide variety of fields: entertainment, IT, real estate, retail, food and beverage, you name it, we've got it. And if not, there are many clubs, including throughout the world, and such international clubs are particularly accessible now via Zoom. And for many of them, they'll unfortunately or fortunately will remain accessible for the foreseeable future until the global vaccines shortage abates. These clubs can sometimes be understaffed, and that's another opportunity for leadership because it's also a direct way to learn the different roles. Here, I'm Sergeant at Arms, a role that's less critical under COVID, but still nice. And my experience as a Toastmaster of recent meetings has highlighted some of the unique challenges we face in facilitating our agendas via Zoom. I hope to eventually earn a distinguished Toastmaster title, and I look forward to seeing my fellow Toastmasters develop and grow individually and as a club. And I hope to see everyone in person again someday very soon. Thank you, fellow Toastmasters.
Thank you, Samir. Fellow Toastmasters, The risk taking involved in preparing a 5 to 7 minute speech cannot be understated. Every week, 2 to 4 of our guests, our members, I should say, will create these 5 to 7 minute speeches and give them in front of this live audience in order to be provided feedback and improve and refine each of the skills it takes to be a public speaker. Our second speaker this morning is Sylvia. Sylvia is going to be evaluated by Anne-Marie. At this time, I will introduce Anne-Marie. Anne-Marie, you're still muted.
Can you hear me?
I can, yes, perfect.
Hey, good morning, fellow Toastmasters and our guests, Chris, Mike, and Tony. Welcome to our meeting. Today, I'm delighted to be evaluating Sylvia Baptiste, and she is doing the Pathway Innovative Training. She's at the level 3, and she's doing an elective speech on social basics. And this is her first try at it. She'll be doing a second one later on. And do you have her title, Ryan?
I do, yes, thank you.
Okay. And it's a 5 to 7 minute speech.
Perfect. This morning, Sylvia will be giving a 5 to 7 minute speech titled, "Yes, it is worth getting up for." Sylvia, yes, it is worth getting up for.
Thank you. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters and our guests this morning. I would like to share a story with you. It is my story, why I decided to join Toastmasters AM Lockport. And it's an interesting, difficult story for me to say. So you will hear a lot of so's and ums, unfortunately. About 4 years ago, I was on a Saturday morning at the Clear Blue. I decided to surf the AM Lockport website. And I came across it and reading the website. Welcome to AM Lockport, worth getting up for. What a catchy saying. I thought it was pretty nice, but that was not the first time I heard that. A few years earlier, an ex-colleague of mine was a past member of AM Lockport. And I have seen how she has grown professionally. She was more positive, more relaxed, smiled a little more, even though she smiled often. And she had confidence. What did that club do for her? What a makeover she had. What made me look at this website that morning, that particular morning? Why? Well, earlier that week, I was at a meeting with some senior management, board members, a financial company, and I say that, and it was a very formal meeting. Everybody was dressed nice, well prepared, best behavior. The gentlemen from the finance company came in with their suits and ties, and they brought one lady with them, very businesslike. You could tell she just had that era. She was dressed to the T, her hair looked great, her makeup was perfect. Sitting in this meeting, listening, after a few minutes, I said, oh my goodness, I am out of my league. Wow. Why did I feel that way? I don't know. I was dressed nice that morning. My hair looked good. I had makeup on. But let me tell you, the air that they brought in, it was a different tone meeting that we normally have. I was afraid, even though I was prepared with all these financial statements, I was going to transpose numbers when I talk. I was going to sound uneducated. I was going to sound crazy. What are they doing with this person in this level? Well, I was lacking the confidence. I needed that makeover like my ex-employee had. I needed that confidence, the makeover, the shoes, the dress, the makeup, a lot of makeup at that time. My first visit to AM Lockport was at Tom's Diner, and Dave Licata greeted me at the door, took my name, introduced me at the beginning of the meeting. And it was about the end of the meeting, I was caught off guard. I was asked, "What do you think of our meeting, our club?" I fumbled all over with words. I couldn't get them out straight. Then found second, third meeting, I was called upon with table topics. There's another fumble. If I said so, once, I said it 10 times. Luckily, whoever was the counter stopped after 10. They said, we'll stop. Good thing. The feedback I received from everyone was positive. And they were encouraging for me to come back and keep attending. And I'm glad I did. One person said, it will get easier as time goes with more speeches and more table topics. Right now, it may seem like you're risk-taking, but it will pay off at the end. They were right. I should say, feel that the speeches are getting a little bit easier. The evaluators and the speakers that I have heard over the weeks and months, years, have taught me something. Each one had brought something new to the table. Now with Zoom, we are learning how to speak over Zoom. In our little square box, we're learning technology. We're learning backgrounds. We're learning where is the camera on the computer? Something silly as that. But that's life now. Is it worth getting up for? Yes. And I hope our guests will return next week and the weeks after. Thank you for letting me share my story this morning.
Thank you, Sylvia. What a great opportunity now to share with our guests. Larry McKenzie has posted in the chat a link to our guest book. And all we ask is that if you would be so obliged, click on the link to our guest book, fill out the lines that you're comfortable with and submit it so we can know that you're here and allow you to get some more information in the future about our club meetings. Our third speaker this morning, Tracy, is going to be evaluated by Jen Czapla. Jen, I will pass it over to you.
Thank you, Ryan. Hello, fellow Toastmasters and guests. All this talk about risk has reminded me of a quote. I'm not sure whose quote this is, so I will not give them credit, but I've heard this recently and it keeps coming to mind. And that quote is, fear killed more dreams than failure ever has. And that's why we take risks. So keep that in mind today and throughout your life. Tracy Farrell is one of our veteran Toastmasters, and she has definitely been known to take some risks and tell us all about her journey. Today, she's going to be starting at the beginning with an icebreaker speech, which is typically the very first speech a member gives. And so when you start an icebreaker as a veteran member, you're beginning your journey all over again. So Tracy is working from the persuasive influence pathway today, and the purpose of her speech is to let us get to know her. Her time is 4 to 6 minutes. Tracy, is that still correct? I should have confirmed. 4 to 6 minutes. And Ryan, do you have her title?
I do. Thank you. I would like to introduce Tracy Farrell, Leadership Lab, what I've learned as a member of Toastmasters and Rotary. Tracy Farrell, Leadership Lab, what I've learned as a member of Toastmasters and Rotary.
Thank you, Ryan. fellow Toastmasters, and our guest. I'm here to tell you about my experiences in Toastmasters and Rotary. It was a couple of years ago I made the decision to join Rotary, and I've already been a member of Toastmasters. And in fact, it was just last year that Rotary and Toastmasters at the international level decided to partner up, and they took the initiative to explore how they can improve upon each other. They both really have a lot of the same goals and mission. They both began in 1905. Rotary began with a group of business leaders who came together with the goal of improving the community around them. And actually, Rotary members every year donate millions of dollars and volunteer hours to promote the health, peace, and prosperity around the globe. It was around the same time, in 1905, when Toastmasters was being formed in the basement of a local YMCA under the tutelage of Ralph Smedley. And he noticed that a lot of the people young men that he was working with really needed to learn how to speak, conduct meetings, plan projects, and work on committees. So his goal also was to learn how to develop leaders. Let's be honest, we've all known a lot of good and bad leaders in our lifetime. The challenge of leadership is really daunting. And there's always been this huge debate. Are leaders born or are they made? I don't know that in any type of certitude, but I can tell you in my experience, leadership is more of an art rather than a science. And I really believe that it's a set of skills that can be refined and perfected with the right training and experience. I personally have always been that quiet, shy girl who sat in the back of the room, especially during meetings. I would never ask a question, let alone offer my opinion. In the past, introverts were never thought to be leaders. But as time goes on, we are learning, and Toastmasters has taught us that it is something that can be learned with science is backing that up, that leaders it's more, introverts can lead with their quiet confidence. They're able to perceive and listen to know what's going on around them. And in fact, science is backing this up. We're now learning that emotional intelligence is much more important than IQ as far in terms of success. Toastmasters personally has taught me a lot about leadership. I've told this story a million times before in Toastmasters, but my first experience was when I was in college. My graduation project was to give a thesis, and I was really nervous about this presentation. So my dad said, well, come to Toastmasters, practice there. I came, I got a lot of evaluations and mentoring on this project, and it really helped me get through it. 10 years had passed since that project, and I had never come back to a Toastmasters meeting since. But at the time I was working for the county, and my director was giving a training session, and he asked me to help give a presentation and help him in this session. I knew this material rock solid, but my presentation was horrible. I was reading the notes word for word. And of course, nobody was paying attention to me because I'm reading from my paper. And if in the back of the room, there's an elderly gentleman who's saying, can you speak up? I can't hear you. Speak up. That really rattled me, and I was off my game. So now you know that was a total flop. And at that point, I knew I needed to get back into Toastmasters. Today, I'm still learning from Toastmasters. Everybody before me has talked about these Zoom meetings, and Toastmasters was an early adopter of getting online and presenting over Zoom. By the time that we actually started doing online meetings at work, I was a veteran. I knew how to do that. Many of our Toastmasters assignments actually involve putting our leadership skills into action. And that's where Rotary and Toastmasters coincide. Every service project is a chance to put your leadership skills into action. And when you're doing these projects in Rotary, you also have other Rotary members working right beside you because they're also learning and sharing their skills with you. Being a part of both organizations, I've learned that you constantly have to improve yourself and challenge yourself at every single minute. You can never get too comfortable. Both organizations are a great opportunity where you can both practice these skills in a nice, safe setting. As one of my mentors had told me, take chances. That's how you grow. Pain nourishes your courage, and you have to fail in order to be brave. So, my fellow Toastmasters and guests, I ask you, be brave. Mr. Toastmaster.
A big thank you to all of our speakers this morning. At this point, I would like to call on Carol Ann for a timers report.
I'm happy to say that all of our speakers have qualified for time.
Excellent. All right, so momentarily, the poll will pop up to vote for your favorite speaker of the morning. Also, in our chat box, you will see a link. Should you choose to want to leave a note for a specific speaker, you can either direct message them through Zoom, or you can use the Google form, and we will get the notes to the speakers. Now that our speeches have concluded, the next portion of the meeting is going to begin some of the evaluation stage. What I'd like to do now is call on each of the evaluators to give their feedback for their speakers. And again, if you have any notes yourself, you can feel free to private message or utilize the link in chat to send those messages to the speakers as well. At this point, I'd like to call on Evaluator 1, Nancy Ferry, who will be evaluating Samir. Nancy.
Oh, sorry, I was having a hard time putting myself back on camera. Oh, I really enjoyed, thank you, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters. I really enjoyed evaluating Samir. This may have been the second or third time I'm evaluating him, so it's a pleasure to see growth and change. I thought, Samir, I thought your speech might be about how you debated whether or not to become and join a Toastmaster. But instead you told this wonderful personal story of your growth and process of becoming a more eloquent speaker. It sounded as if you were joining Toastmasters, and that may have been risk-taking for you at the time. You walked us through many opportunities in life to speak in public, and the light bulb went on when you said that you were a debater. No wonder. Early on, some of your speeches were so packed with so much information, extraordinary amount of information in 7 minutes. Now it all makes sense. My father was a debate coach, and I went to many, many debates and never was very good at it, but I had spent a lot of time listening to other people debate. So now that light bulb went on. I'd like to offer that the introduction could have had a little pop to it to gain the audience attention, but it was very slow and gentle, and I appreciated that as well. Your speech was well organized with clarity, was very appropriate to the audience, had smooth transitions. And again, your conclusion was very gentle and warm as you spoke of looking forward to meeting again in person. the overall evaluation, excellent. The topic was very well chosen and you completed on time. And it was a pleasure to hear your speech. Looking forward to future speeches. Thank you, Samir.
Thank you, Nancy. At this time, we're going to move on to our second evaluator, Anne Marie. Anne Marie will be evaluating Sylvia's speech this morning. I'd like to introduce Anne Marie.
Good morning, Toastmasters, once again, and especially Sylvia. Sylvia, you did a remarkable job. You really did. Real sense of sincerity and understanding and really inviting us into your world. I was really very struck by your sense of presence. The topic obviously was very relevant to all of us. And I think we've all been through some of the struggles that you had mentioned, so we can really identify that with that. It's a success story, transformation, growth, important learnings, and the remarkable changes in the person at the personal level and as a professional. Very organized, and also you gave some really good examples of the meeting and why you came to Toastmasters. I'm amazed that you've only been in for 4 years. It seems like it's been longer than that. And there's just a tremendous amount of growth that you've gone through. Some of the presentation skills were really excellent. I think your pacing was good. It was very calm. Everything was very understandable, and also a sense of clarity in your language. But most importantly, I think you really engaged the audience, really pulling us in to focus on the content. There are a few things that I would recommend that you do, and they're really kind of nitty-gritty things, and has to do with Zoom. One, at least on my screen, you were very far to the left, and I think it would have been a little bit more dynamic if you could sort of move to the center of the screen. Also, another thing that we're all guilty of not doing is gestures. So we could see your head and you know, sort of the shoulder shot, but with the intensity of the content, I think some appropriate gestures could have really enhanced your message. And in addition, you could have done a little bit more with an attention getter, like relating it to us, like how many people have struggled with public speaking, or how many people are here because of doubt that they had at the workplace, something to kind of draw us in. And also, I'm just looking at my notes here. I liked your ending where you really thanked us for the opportunity to speak, and that was very effective. So overall, you did an amazing job, particularly on kind of a personal gut level, and I'm looking forward to your future speeches, Sylvia. Thank you.
Thank you, Emery. I appreciate your evaluation. The next evaluator this morning is Jen Zapla. Jen will be evaluating Tracy's speech as our third evaluator and third speaker. At this time, I'd like to introduce Jen Zapla.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and especially Tracy. Tracy, thank you for sharing your icebreaker speech with us today. A couple of comments on your icebreaker. I know you've spoken before to us a little bit about your journey and the first time you were at Toastmasters and how difficult it was for you. And through that time, you've come to give excellent pacing and appear very calm. So I can't even imagine you ever being anything other than perfectly calm. And it's good to see that in a speaker. Now, a few things to work on in terms of improvements, one of them being Zoom, of course, we have this window behind you, and so your face is getting a little bit lost with the backlighting there. And it may just be even so much as repositioning yourself or your camera if you're able to. You're just a little bit off center. And so when I had you on speaker view, I couldn't see all of the guests. And when I took you off, then you're just so tiny when I'm looking at your little camera. Now, a couple of other things to mention today. I thought your introduction and your conclusion were really wonderful and impactful. You did a great job of telling us about Rotary, which I'm not very familiar with, and how that's similar to Toastmasters. And I thought you really bookended this speech well in terms of the content. You know, you told us why it's important to us and what you've gotten out of it. And I really liked the way that you began and ended the speech. The content in the middle, you did share a little bit of personal stories with us, but I thought that you could have even shared more of that experience or really heightened how that experience has helped you to really emphasize your points here. And now, of course, you're sitting down and you're speaking. So I didn't see as many gestures as I am typically seeing from Tracy or used to seeing from you. And that was one thing that I thought detracted from your speech a little bit more. We lost a little bit of your emotion because of that, and a little bit of the impact that you could have had to bring us into the speech. Now, overall, again, as I mentioned, your conclusion, I thought, wrapped up the speech very well and told us everything we needed to know about Toastmasters. Of course, you're speaking to the choir here, because most of us are big fans of Toastmasters and have been here for quite a long time. And for our guests, that means you should probably join. We would love to have you. I will turn it back over to our Toastmaster today, Ryan.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. At this time, I would like to once again call upon Carol Ann for a timers report for our evaluators.
Pleased to say all our evaluators made time.
Excellent. At this time, as this screen has popped up in front of me, you may vote for the best evaluator of the day. I would also like to pass it over to our general evaluator at this time to begin calling for reports to make sure that throughout the meeting, we were all putting the correct emphasis on the right syllable. Phil Russell, take it away.
Thank you, Mr. Toastmaster. What an introduction. Let me get out of this and get over to this. And I first want to say this, because I'm going to evaluate the Toastmaster first. What a great voice. What great diction. Excellent way of running a meeting today. But something that Jen helped me with that I want to see more out of you, Ryan. And that's simply, I just want to see you loosen up a little bit and show us your true emotions, because you did a great job. I really enjoyed that immensely. And it really helps. I always like the help with this. I'm going to start with the evaluators, and then, you know, you're not supposed to pick on the general evaluator, but because I'm going to finish with my evaluations, and I'll tell them they can pick on me. I'm used to that. I can take it. I've been around a long time because I am a risk taker. And I'll tell you what, my risk was when I joined Lockport Toastmasters, predecessor to AM Lockport Toastmasters. It was the greatest risk of my life because I was petrified, completely petrified. I was scared to death. My first speech was a complete white knuckle. I just stood there and read word for word. It was horrible. But through the years, like everybody else, you grow, and it was wonderful. So I am a risk taker, and probably every decision in my life has been a risk. But that's what makes us alive and have fun with our lives. So now, Mr. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and our guests, and it's great to have these guests here because you can learn so much from what we're doing. Now, let's start off with Nancy. Nancy, I think you and I were thinking of the same things. I love that idea where you helped them with, you got to put a little pop in your speech. When you said to Samir, I felt the same way. And it was just seemed like you were thinking the same way I was. And with Samir, you see, Samir is very precise. He can't help himself. He's been Jesuit trained, just like my son. You can't help it. The training that they get is unbelievable. And I commend Samir because I could tell that that Jesuit training shows through. And Nancy, you did a great job with that evaluation. Anne Marie, now there's a risk taker. She is taking on, as I am, this pathways thing, and she is having great difficulty with it, but she's taking the risk and doing it. And she's well-spoken. She's very positive. That's what we always like to have. Her recommendations were helpful. That's what we want to have. Good examples. And my favorite part is Anne Marie is very natural with the way she does things. Now we move on to Tracy's evaluator, Jen. Jen is always, it's if you're going to have Jen as your evaluator, you should be happy because she's going to point out the good points and that she's going to show you some great ideas on helping. That's why I said at the very beginning, she helped me with something that I felt put in there as I could help Ryan with. So it's always a privilege to listen to Jen as your evaluator. So when you have Jen, yes, she may be tough, but appreciate it because you're getting some great helpful hints. And she helped me. And let's see. And at the very end, which all Toastmasters are supposed to do, a call to action. Please join us again. And that's the great part about it. Now I'm going to move on to our I don't have them in front of me, but I'll figure it out. Let's start off with the one that picks on us the most, the master. Where's our master? Raise your hand. There's Marty Johnson. You had a little trouble, Marty, to begin with, but I'm sure you're going to do a great job. Let's welcome our master, Marty Johnson.
Thank you, Phil. Good morning, fellow Toastmasters, and most welcome guest. I was definitely risk-taking this morning, doing the best I could to listen to picking up ahs, ums, ers, filler words, and this is my report. Eric had one Carol Ann had an ah, Anne Marie had a couple ahs, Gerald had an ah, Jen had an ah, and Phil and Sylvia both had what do you call it? Not a pregnant pause, but a long or stretched out and which is not uncommon for people to do when they're thinking of what they're going to say next. Mike Florio, welcome back, Mike, had an ah. Larry McKenzie, I picked up the word so. Sometimes different interjections are appropriate, sometimes they're not. I just picked that up and wrote it down. I don't think it was a major problem. We only used it once. That is my report, Mr. General Evaluator. Thank you.
Right,
Everyone have a good day. I have to go to work.
Thank you. Now, this is my most horrible of things to do because my grammar has always been a little questionable. But it is fun to do because what you're doing is you're learning how to speak correctly. And now let's introduce our grammarian, and that will be Jackie Kenny. Jackie.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Most horrible of things to do. Oh, off to a good start. I heard someone use the phrase doing a speech, and obviously it should be presenting or giving a speech. But I heard a lot of language that I liked this morning, including myriad formats from Samir. Anne Marie used gut level. Tracy, constantly improve yourself, which is the description of Toastmasters. And Sylvia, different tone of meeting. All in all, I I heard a lot of good language this morning, a lot of precise diction, which I really appreciate. Thank you, everyone, for that. And that is my report.
Thank you for being so kind, Jackie, because I know how to butcher the Queen's English totally. And I sometimes have fun doing it. Let's pick on who now. Oh, our quiz master. Well, wait a minute. Who's our tech master? That's Lenny. Let's move over to Lenny and do the text and gestures. Your turn, Lenny.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator, fellow Toastmasters. I noticed a lot today. Many of us, this is the ongoing thing, many of us don't look into the camera. Rather, we're looking down at our screen or our notes. So that's what we're all guilty of. We need to work on a little bit more. I noticed face touching by a lot of people, in particular, Eric, Larry, Marty, David, Thomas, Kate, Samir, Margot, and myself. Off center, when you don't position yourself in the center of the frame, that can be a little bit distracting. I think some of the other speakers touched on that in their evaluations, particularly Tracy, Gerald, Jill, and Steve. Steve, we saw the top of your head more than anything. You need to boost your seat so that you're on the same level with Jill. People that were conscious of that, most of the other people, in particular Jim and Marty, I saw adjusting their camera height up and down to make sure that they were in the center of the screen. That was good. Now, when we get up and walk away, and we're going to be off camera for a period of time, the proper thing to do is to hit the little stop video button. And a lot of us did that. I saw Mike, Eric, Margot, David, Jackie, Nancy, Samir, Marty, Gerald, Muklas, and Jen do that. Fantastic. I did see, let's see, Jackie, the first time you walked away, you forgot to do that. I saw you walk off screen. Now that can be distracting when somebody is speaking, obviously, so we try and avoid that. I have to give kudos to two people who had probably the best attention span. They stayed still and focused on the speaker in the entire meeting. And that's our guest, Chris Banks, and also Jen. You just listen intently and you can tell that we have the focus of your attention. And I'll call out Kate for doing maybe the opposite there. It's apparent that you're multitasking a lot of times and doing something else. And I do that as well. I'm going back and forth. I hope it's not as noticeable, but we come here to pay attention to all the speakers and to focus on this for an hour and a half. And I think that's what we should do. Lighting is a big issue when you're dealing with a visual medium like this. And most people, pretty decent. A couple people have windows behind them, and that's the cardinal rule of against the camera. Tracy in particular, you're very dark because you have a bright window behind you. Sylvia, Marty, and even Chris DeGlopper, you can increase your lighting a little bit, your front-facing lighting. Samir, you're looking off to the side because you're still using notes and reading, and I get that. Try and position your notes a little bit closer to the center of the camera so that it looks like you're speaking directly to us rather than reading. That is all I had for my report today, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lenny. I call it adult ADHD. I can't sit still. I have to keep moving. And sitting here is not the easiest, but it is fun. And that's why I always say it's worth getting up for. It really is. Let's now move on to the quiz master. I believe that's, I think he's off at another planet someplace. Steve, what planet are you on? Are you in this universe? Let's get to the quiz master, Steve Smith.
Thank you, Phil. We missed you last week at the Star Show we had down in Margin Manor. However, Margot did a more than adequate job of replacing you, needling me about astrology. I think you trained her well. Anyway, let's get on with the questions. I hope you were paying attention. What does Dr. Gerald Stevens take a picture of?
Every flower.
Bingo. How many honeydew chores did Larry McKenzie do?
3 years worth.
3 years worth.
23 years.
137.
23 years worth in 6 months. Who greeted Sylvia Batiste at the door at Tom's Diner when she showed up to join
David
Toastmasters?
Licata.
Dave
The one and
Licata.
only David
There's a
Licata.
kid, yeah.
Da, 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 da.
Clear? What two groups does Tracy Farrell belong to?
Rotary and
Lockport Rotary.
Toastmasters.
Now, what year was the Rotary founded?
1905.
Whoa, Jen,
Very good.
for the win.
1905.
What was Nancy Ferry's father?
Debate coach.
Coach.
Coach, very good. And finally, a real gimme. Is Lockport Toastmasters really worth getting up for?
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Now I know you are on this planet again. Steve is our great star search man, and he has a plethora of knowledge about the stars, and it's just going there and listening to him is amazing. And he works with our Lions Club, and he does a great job with it. All right, now for the last person, I'm looking for a word master, Eric Schneider.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Risk-taking wasn't that popular today. Only Jill used it once, Jen used it twice, and Phil, you snuck in with 3. So everybody, let's all say the word today.
Sylvia used it too in her speech. I thought that was
Sylvia?
awesome.
Okay, all right.
I used it.
Used it. But let's all say the word together. Risk-taking.
Take a risk.
Risk-taking.
Thank you very much, Mr. General Evaluator.
All right, I am going to now pass the torch back to our Toastmaster of the day, who did a wonderful job, and let him finish off and pass the torch to our president. Back to you, Ryan.
Thank you, Phil, Mr. General Evaluator. This is my real side. This is as emotional as I become. Oh, some of you know me. I guess I can't lie that well. So thank you very much to everyone that attended the meeting this morning, especially to our table topic speakers, our structured speakers, and our guests. At this point, what I would like to do is just call on each guest. You can wave me off if you want. We're not going to require you to say anything out loud, but I'll start as they are aligned on my screen. Just give a couple of seconds introduction and how you thought our meeting went today. I'll start with you, Chris.
Good morning, everyone. I have been interested in Toastmasters because Katie, my niece, talks about it quite a bit, and I know a lot of you over the years, and I've been interested in how this can help me more speak off the cuff. I can read fabulously. I'm a library director. I do story hour. I can do that extremely well, but when I have to just speak from my brain, I stumble a lot, and I use and so I want to get better at that.
Awesome. Thank you. And we hope to see you back week after week. I'm more than happy to have you here. Our next guest, Tony, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Tony, you're currently muted. I apologize. Can't hear you.
All right, I think you can hear me now.
Yes, sir.
All right, well, thank you for having me at the meeting. I appreciate this. I was surprised at how structured it was. Not a bad thing, but it did come as a surprise to me. And I'm here because Kate threatened me. And no, she didn't. But no, I love Kate. So I think I'll be back again. And again, thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you again for coming. We hope to see you in the future. And I'm not surprised that Kate threatened you. So we believe you. And if you need anything, you come to us. Our next guest, Mike Florio. Mike, if you'd like to say a few things.
Yeah, good morning. And thanks for the opportunity again, Kate. Thanks for throwing it in my lap. That really took me off guard, but it's great to be back. Ryan, I don't believe we've ever met yet, but I've been a member. Well, I was a member for maybe 10 years, and I kind of moved away from it, and being locked up in my house, I wanted to maybe reconnect with people again and just get together and, you know, enjoy the friendships again. So it was really a pleasure to come back and see everyone and see that everyone is doing well, and we have new members, and I'll be back again. So thanks.
Excellent. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah.
At this point, I would like to welcome any of our founding members or any long-term members that want to say anything to wrap up the meeting before I turn it over to our president. Tom Moran.
Yes, I normally have something to say during a meeting. First of all, I'd like to point out that according to the reports this morning, my grammar and my ahs and ums were perfect. I was not reported for anything, which I'm very pleased about. The DECA program at the Lockport High School is complete now. They are finished, and it's because they might be transitioning back to in-person classes in another few weeks. So we're currently not going to do that virtually. Jill wants to have one more program, and customarily she would do it where it would involve our Toastmaster group at the end of the season, and the kids would kind of perform and do the program for the Toastmaster group. So that's still in the works, and I will report on that as we formulate some plans and come up with a date. So just an update on the DECA program at the high school. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. At this point, provided I don't see any more hands or hear any more requests, I'm going to pass it over to our club president, Mr. Eric Schneider. Take it away.
Ryan, thank you so much. Wonderful open house, fellow Toastmasters. It was fun, enjoyable, and I hope our guests enjoyed it today as well. Before I get to our winners today, tonight is our speak-a-thon. If anybody needs to do a speech, we invite you guys to join speak-a-thon tonight, followed by our social hour. And I know Larry just put it in the chat. So please join us for our speak-a-thon social hour tonight at 7 p.m. And also next week is April 1st. And guess what that day means for us?
April Fool's Day.
No, it's our
And it's also our 37th anniversary as a club, chartered April Fool's Day, 1984.
How many years have I been doing this?
Happy birthday, Am Lockport.
Katie, what did you say? How many years?
37, I think. Is it 38?
37 years. 37
Yeah, we had our
years.
35th anniversary 2 years ago.
Wow.
And Jen Zeppla is our Toastmaster for that day. And Jen, do you have a theme?
TBD.
DVD. Okay, we'll wait till next week to find out. All right. Let's get to our winner since it's basically 8:30. Drum roll, please, for our best table topic speaker today. Mike Florio is our winner for best table topic.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Thanks for the buffer. Thanks for the opportunity. You gave me a 20-second buffer. Usually I'm in and out and I stumble around, but thank you so much.
Do you have a Venmo account, Mike?
Pardon me?
Do you have a Venmo account?
Yeah. Each one will get a significant portion of $5.
All right, drum roll, please, for our best evaluator. And the winner is Jen Zapla. All right, one more drum roll, please, for our best speaker. And I know she's gone, but Tracy Farrell is our best speaker today.
So are the hands things? Is that something new?
Yeah,
Let's applaud.
Is our applause instead of clapping because
Jazz hands.
Jazz hands.
Yes, since everybody's muted.
All right.
Happy hands.
Happy hands, yes.
All
yes.
right. So Toastmasters, that is the end of our open house. Please stick around for post toasties. And I will see everyone later today, and have a great Thursday. It's a beautiful day out. Enjoy it. So thank you all so much for coming, and I adjourn the meeting.